All right, everyone. David Pakman, whose name is also a video game, giving him perfect Halloween costume ideas. That's one positive thing about his character. He decided to attack Andy Warski the other day after his stream with Spencer and Sargon, myself, Millennial Woes, others, JF. He decided to go on the assault, and he's like, well, Andy Warski, who's basically, he's catering to Nazis is the intonation, I guess. Like everyone else. But he decides to go a step further. He says, he offered me $1,500 to go on his stream once, and I was sketched out because, that Andy Warski, he's a questionable fellow. So I demanded the money up front, and then he never, I never heard from him again. Basically the idea of intoning that Warski was trying to scam him to get him on the show or something. Warski comes out and responds, owns him totally, and says, well, I didn't offer you shit. I wouldn't do that. My agent did. And I was going to get money, too, because it was like promoting an app or something. And, then I dropped all my sponsors because I didn't need them anymore. I'd grown big enough, and now Warski does like crowdfunding, like the super chats and stuff. The stuff that the legacy media wishes that we weren't able to do that as political commentators on YouTube, because it means that we can make a living and be independent of corporate control, and that's like the greatest risk to the legacy media is independent commentators online. With almost no overhead, who as long as they keep it somewhat civil, they're not going to get kicked off. They're terrified of us. They're even terrified of the centrists, like a radical centrist with no out there beliefs but is still independent. They'll defame them too based on some gesture they made, based on one little thing that they said over the past 5 years. Like they'll dig through people's garbage as much as possible to try to defame them. Then he comes out, Pakman. He's asked about me in the context of the stream, because of course I was there on Warski's show that he's referring to. He's like, oh, Styx, isn't that conspiracy theorist that doesn't believe Osama bin Laden was killed in the raid stuff? I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I think he's trying to pick a fight with us because he realizes his audience, and this may not even be true, his audience may be larger than like mine or Warski's, but we're rising. The old guard of punditry is dying off because TV and radio are dying off. Now, Pakman could do, if he was wise, he would just switch to a web-only system. Start a podcast, scrap the radio show, say, fuck it. Who cares about it? It's more trouble than it's worth. Probably I'd get double the audience if I switched over. Look, that's what even like O'Reilly should have done. He should have started streaming on YouTube. Instead, he has his pay-to-play sort of moron site that maybe 10 people actually pay him to watch his shit anymore. Haven't heard much from him lately. Glenn Beck and all these others, they make the same mistake over and over. They think that because something is official and corporate and legacy, that it makes it more important. It's like the idea of a brick and mortar college that you pay 40 grand to go to being more important than simply studying on your own time for 10 bucks and an ebook. There's no difference between the two. You can learn the exact same material. You can learn exactly the same thing. You don't need to even go to college in order to read a fucking newspaper and know what's going on in the world. Of course, you don't know what's going on in the world with the average newspaper. It's better to get your info online at this point from local sources. But, some people think that that's not journalistically credible, which is funny. Now, Pakman, I think he wants to attack us because he's hoping to chip off part of our increasingly massive audience to supplement his own, which is maybe larger, but it is over time going to falter. And keep in mind, Pakman's only a few years older than we are. Warski's 30, I'm almost 30. I think Pakman's, 34 or something. He also looks mysterious. He looks like a little bit like if Jared Holt and Moot, if you combined their genetics, it would turn into David Pakman. Just saying. It's kind of funny, actually, come to think of it. But let me explain something really quickly here. Something people need to understand. First and foremost, why would I want to talk to Pakman? Because I think it was in the context of, hey, would you talk to Styx about these things? And he's like, blah, blah, conspiracy theorists. Well, I wouldn't want to talk to you, dude. I wouldn't want to go on your show, and I wouldn't have you on one of my streams unless it was to berate you, because you're part of the establishment. You're a neoliberal. You're a Clintonian neoliberal. It'd be the same as if you were like the #1 fan of the Bush family. No, I'm not going to have much in common with you. I have more in common with people on the fringe left than people on the neoliberal left. I have more in common with people on the fringe right than with the neocon right, because your kind of political ideology is what started every war for the last few decades. And in fact, basically for the last century or so. Why on earth would I take you seriously? The solutions that are offered never work. things never get better. People become less literate, less wealthy, they have less jobs overall, our position in the world keeps slipping, and you ask me to say, well, that establishment status quo is okay. No, I would rather a bunch of radicals take hold. I don't even care particularly what background of radicalism it is, because maybe their solutions will actually work. At the very least, fuse some of their better ideas, the more sane ones, with what we've got now and hope things get marginally better. Maybe like a Trump, sort of situation, mild reform, a compromise of sorts, mild populism. Yeah, the tax plan will probably work, be just fine for me. You're probably in a bracket above mine, Pakman, but, that doesn't make your opinion more valuable just because you have a position as an adjunct professor at Boston College. That just means that you've got a piece of paper saying that you teach there. It's a job that a lot of people could do. No, only if they're accredited, though, because, again, the brick and mortar scam system that the government throws untold billions to likes to take people's money and make itself seem like a little ivory fortress, not just a tower. But let me address Rationalwiki really quickly, because it's something people need to understand this. Rationalwiki is like Conservapedia, and that is politically motivated version of Wikipedia for people who can't use actual Wikipedia because it doesn't conform to their echo chamber. That is, a person on Rationalwiki, if they're editing things, they're too far left to structure an article on actual Wikipedia to be along their guidelines of fairness and a balanced article. That is, Rationalwiki is for unbalanced articles. You can see this with mine. The original article prior to my own edits, which, by now I never used the site because they could have been reverted by now for all I fucking know. And for all I care, honestly, because the average person using Rationalwiki probably doesn't like me to begin with. If you looked at it, it fixated only on a handful of things on which I appear to be far right. It would be like if someone didn't like me and they were on Conservapedia, and if they made an article about me, what do you think that they would put in it? They would say, Styx believes in sodomite marriage. Styx believes in killing babies. Styx believes people should be able to get doped up and do stupid shit. They would write an unbalanced article. It would be something that couldn't be on Wikipedia. If I were considered important enough to have a wiki article, someone tried to make one, they got my birthday wrong. I think that's why they deleted it, honestly. Try again. Wait 6 months to a year as my audience grows and I release more books and stuff. Then try again. I'll give more appearances and stuff. I'll be going to the Minds gathering in March, or at least calling in. Wait until I've been part of some events that, are more noteworthy. Then you can do that. But if you were going to make a Conservapedia article and you didn't like me, you wouldn't put in, Styx is, he supports the Second Amendment. You wouldn't put in Styx is not antagonistic. He used to be antagonistic towards organized religion more. Now he says he's spiritual, doesn't really care, it's a side issue. You wouldn't put those in because the Conservapedia audience wouldn't mind me. They would think, the dude doesn't sound that out there. He sort of sounds like me, because you've missampled what I've said. But if you do a Rationalwiki article, and you focus on an offhand comment I make on Osama bin Laden and a few other things that I rarely even talk about, and ignore 99% of all of my content, including all of my literary content, you're going to get the impression that I'm a far-right individual. Just like you could paint me as a far-left individual, depending on the sampling of things that I've said that you choose to include in an article is important. Whereas on Wikipedia, you couldn't do that. It would have to be balanced. You couldn't simply cast someone as a far-left, they're a fanatic pinko, or far-right, they're literally Hitler. You can't do that on Wikipedia, that's the problem. And then Wikipedia has its own bias problems from time to time. Their article on social Marxism. Oddly enough, they determined that should be subjugated to another, more fitting term according to the social Marxists, while not making the same argument for trickle-down, which of course was never used by the Reaganites to describe their own economic proposals. So it can be a little bit unbiased there as well, but generally speaking, the articles have to be somewhat balanced. There can't be totally overt propaganda going on. So for Pakman to allude to this article in order to describe what he thinks about my character, be intellectually honest. Look, you're casting yourself on as an intelligentsia, a mainstream. You're a liberal, so therefore you're supposed to be smart and you're supposed to care about evidence and stuff. Well, then actually look at my fucking material before you judge me, dude. Don't make the same elementary mistake that somebody with 10 subscribers might make. Supposedly you're more intelligent, more important than that. You're like a lame streamer. You got the radio show and the multi-million-dollar gig. Well, then why wouldn't you be fair? Well, because, of course, he's trying to defame people who are now his direct competitors. Something like Warski. Warski, I think, terrifies them more than almost anybody. Because if you look at the kind of setup he's garnering, this is what I said, I think, about 6 months ago, would be the new political YouTube. It's going to be more driven by shows in the most strict sense, like streams. Things people can transfer, they can put it to audio, listen to it while they drive instead of radio. They can play it on their TV. Increasingly, you're going to see like on-demand partnerships. I oppose the idea, but you're probably going to see offers of that to certain people. We're starting to edge out the old guard of pundits within their radio style broadcasting, and simply shows where you have the classic style of shows where you have guests, you have interviews, you have Q&A sessions, stuff like that. We're starting to become more popular in doing so. Warski's show was, for that slot, it was #1 trending on YouTube. It was the #1 thing people were watching at that time on YouTube live, was the conversation between Spencer, Sargon, myself, Millennial Woes, JF, and all of the others that were aboard. #1. That's a big thing, because during that same slot, you've got mainstream material from news sites and political commentary that's running live at the same time, and it's being subjugated by somebody who's sitting in his home office with Warski behind him and a checkerboard and you know, an AT microphone or whatever style he has. By the way, I want a microphone like his with the little filter and everything. I think it'd be more attractive. That's the real truth. We terrify these people. There are competitors. We're their competitors. Of course that they're going to oppose and defame. But the thing is, as far as what he said about me, he's alluding to an article that's simply totally lopsided. And by the way, the statement about Osama, there was an offhand comment about Budo, who did objectively absolutely say, well, you know, Osama, to my knowledge, died of renal failure years ago. Well, you know, that's a world leader. Why is it a conspiracy theory to say that she was right, and it's not to say that Obama was right? He'd never provided any evidence that Osama was killed. I'm sorry, but I'm going to stick to that one. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory at all. And I think anyone using the term conspiracy theory to describe that, as opposed to actually wanting to have a debate on the subject, is just choosing which leader they choose to believe, one over the other, because what they've said is contradictory. Well, that doesn't mean it's a conspiracy. It means that I don't find Obama to be particularly trustworthy, and McCain backing her up didn't help the situation, trust me. Now, McCain backing him up makes it less trustworthy in my estimation. Get Rand Paul to confirm the picture that you supposedly took of Osama's maimed corpse, and then we'll talk. You get Rand to come forward and say that he believes it and saw the picture. You get him to shake my hand, look me in the eye, and say he saw it, and then I'll believe him. Or Amash. Or even like get a Sanders to do that. You know, he lives locally. Maybe it's easier to meet up with him and say, "Oh, you saw the picture, right? Oh no, it was destroyed. It was too classified. They decided to burn the only copy." That's probably what they would say. It'd be really funny. Now, questioning the official bottom line in the wake of the Gulf of Tonkin and things like that, I don't think that that's problematic. It's not hurting anybody. I'm not suggesting anything fanatic. I'm just suggesting that the timeline was wrong for political reasons. For Pakman to extrapolate that to my entire worldview when that was one offhand comment in one video years ago, and ignore everything else that I talked about, well, that's what Rationalwiki did. It's what others have done when they don't like me, or if they do like me. If somebody's on the right and they like me, they'll probably not going to mention too much about my gay marriage views, or they'll subjugate it to some right-wing excuse to why that's okay. Oh, well, you know, personal liberty, or, you know, it costs too much to oppose it legally, save people tax money or something. That's what they would do. And if they're on the left and they like my material, they do the same thing. They do me a solid and make a fluff piece about me. But it's still lopsided. It's just in my favor. You know, I probably don't mind that as much as something that's, you know, lopsided and made by someone who viscerally hates me. But at least allude to something that's true. And as for Warski's part, that was pretty much defamatory, and you put it out in public on Twitter. Oh, he tried to give me 1,500, but he didn't. You do realize that could be a problem for Pakman in the future. You know, Warski might have to shoot him a message, send him a letter, basically leave me alone, cease and desist. That would be funny. You know, some lamestream pundits deserve. Pakman's, you know, he's a B tier. He's basically the left-wing Shapiro, only maybe minus 20 IQ points. So, you know, again, why would I want to have him on my show or something? Why would Warski want to talk to him? Wouldn't make any sense. I mean, we're not exact. A YouTuber isn't gaining anything from having some radio personality on their show. The audience that actually cares about, you know, most people, they listen to the radio on their way to work. They tune it out. It doesn't mean anything to them. If they actually pay attention, though, that's a radio listener. They're getting that on the radio. Maybe they don't care about online content. They're not going to come subscribe to someone's YouTube channel because they talk to a radio personality. It's not going to happen. They're almost mutually exclusive political audiences at this point. And ours is growing, and theirs is shrinking. That's why there are so many attacks. I told people it was going to happen over a year ago. The character attacks would increase over time. They still will, by the way. They're going to get more prevalent, especially guilt by association and lie by omission. Those would be the two big things to look for. That or claims of, oh, well, this person is, insert term here, basically just trying to smear and slander. Conspiracy theorist, Nazi, bigot, pinko, socialist, pervert, whatever it happens to be, they'll use it in an effort to dismantle our arguments without actually having to debate us. Because in that way, they can hope to retain more of their audience longer. I think they still know it's temporary. They're trying to stanch out the bleeding long enough for them to be able to formulate a way to force the government to crack down on the internet so that they can come in and corporatize everything. Which, at this point, I'm fairly optimistic they'll actually fail at that. I don't think that they're actually going to succeed. I think that worries them. That's about all. Peace out.